What happens when you try really hard to do the right thing, devote your time and energy to saving something you love, only to see it all slip away? Hi everyone, Ken here. Today we're finding out what happened to a sprawling Tudor Revival mansion known as Glenridge Hall. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. Born in 1868 in Vernon, Mississippi, Thomas K. Glenn moved to Atlanta as a young man and quickly rose through the ranks of the city's financial and industrial worlds. By his mid-30s, he was vice president of Georgia Railway and Electric Company, which would later become Georgia Power. He led Atlantic Steel for over a decade and served on the boards of Coca-Cola, First National Bank, and Grady Hospital. Glenn wasn't just building businesses, he was helping shape modern Atlanta. After marrying his second wife Elizabeth in 1927, Glenn commissioned the architectural firm of Cooper & Cooper to design his dream house. In the Roaring '20s, when Atlanta's elite were building grand summer homes along West Paces Ferry Road, Glenn chose a quiet tract of secluded, rolling farmland north of the city in what is now Sandy Springs. The design for Glenridge Hall was nothing short of majestic, a 12,000 square foot Tudor Revival manor perched on the highest point of the 400-acre property. A mix of half timbering, stucco, and red brick, and completely surrounded by dense forest, the estate almost had the air of a fairy tale aesthetic. Not only was there a mansion, but there was also a caretaker's cottage which was designed to seamlessly blend in. It was given every bit as much attention as the main house, ensuring that the help lived comfortably. Wandering about the grounds, you would find several other outbuildings including a garage, and as the trees open out to a field, you would have seen cattle grazing about the dairy farm. There were several other amenities which made the house more self-sustaining, including a well house, but we didn't come here to see the estate's gritty underbelly, we came to bask in its opulence. Nearing the main entrance, we find the front door set below a brick groin vault, an indication of spaces to come, with charming details sprinkled about for the curious eye to observe. Entering the home, we arrive in the foyer, steering through an archway towards the Great Hall. The Great Hall was a marvel of a room by itself, timbered and stuccoed with soaring hammerbeam ceilings, diamond-paned windows, and arches opening up to rooms and alcoves in each direction. To the far end, we can imagine sitting down to either side of the inglenook as a fire rages in the limestone fireplace covered in Gothic tracery. To the opposite end, we spot an opening below the balcony. Let's make our way up a couple steps and pass through it. This leads us to the library, where a Jacobean ceiling soars overhead, bookcases line one wall, and French doors could be opened on the other. We'll continue exploring the house, making our way down galleries crowned by ribbed groin vaults and set with rosettes, and flanked by pointed glass pane doors. Eventually, we stumble upon the octagonal breakfast room, with seamless murals painted by famed Atlanta artist Athos Menaboni, who intended to create the feeling that you were sitting beneath an umbrella and looking out over the landscape. We'll see more of the first floor in just a little while, but for now let's go ahead and make our way up the grand staircase to see some of the rooms on the second floor. Up here we can look out over the balcony to get a better view of the Great Hall and admire the Gothic tracery and the woodwork of the hammerbeam ceiling. Then we can turn around and make our way down the second floor hall and begin opening doors. Up here we find rooms isolated in style, from the painted paneled living quarters in the southwest wing, to the more relaxed living quarters of the mansion's east wing. Soon after the home's completion, Glenn began opening his house up for various events, including gallery space for an art exhibition. He even hosted a charity musicale to benefit Wesley Hospital, in which his home was filled with hundreds of people and live music. Yet for all its grandeur, Glenridge Hall was also a family home. Glenn lived there until his passing in 1946, and the property remained in the family's care for decades. As time rolled on, Atlanta's sprawl began to encroach on the property, with developers pining to demolish the mansion for office parks and neighborhoods. Even though the family sold off most of the land, they held firmly to the house. In the 1980s, his granddaughter, Mrs. Mason, and her husband began restoring the mansion. She met with William Vanderbilt Cecil, who at the time was head of the Biltmore estate, to talk through restoration strategy. Mrs. Mason was able to get Glenridge Hall listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1982, and the house was celebrated as one of Atlanta's architectural treasures. They hosted galas, weddings, and film crews. In fact, notable titles such as Driving Miss Daisy and The Vampire Diaries were both filmed in the house. As the decades continued to roll on, the home was cared for with routine maintenance being performed to keep it in exquisite form. Rotted half timbering had been delicately replaced, and the gardens had matured and aged in grace. By the 2010s, the interior restoration work would be called world-class, with original furnishings to top it all off. In the library, you could still find the portrait of Thomas Glenn looking out over his beloved home, and in the dining room, families continued to gather for holidays and formal meals. Even the mural in the breakfast room was painstakingly restored to appear as it did when first painted. But time and development pressure crept in. By 2015, only 80 acres remained. The property was sold, and despite public outcry and a petition with over 15,000 signatures, Glenridge Hall was demolished in 2015 to make way for Mercedes-Benz US headquarters along with a few residential developments. Despite doing everything right, Glenridge Hall could not escape the march of progress. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What did you think about Glenridge Hall? Did you have a favorite room or architectural feature? Let me know down below in the comments section. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.